When I opened that envelope with the HOA logo on it, I thought it was another petty fine about my lawn or trash bins. But no, it was an eviction notice, an actual eviction notice. The absurd part. The woman who sent it, Karen, was trying to kick me out of a house that I owned. And what she didn't know was that she was living in one of my houses. Yeah, I was her landlord. When I first moved into Maplewood Estates, I expected the usual hassles of settling in, figuring out which day was trash pickup, remembering the gate code, meeting a few neighbors. What I didn't expect was to run into a self-appointed dictator named Karen Miller. You know the type, early 40s, perfectly ironed white blouse hair so stiff it could survive a hurricane and a clipboard practically glued to her hand. The kind of woman who believes she was born to maintain neighborhood standards. At first it was little things, notes tucked under my door about my grass being too high by an inch, then a warning because my trash cans were 6 inches too far from the curb. One night she rang my doorbell at 9 p.m. to tell me my porch light was too bright and disrupting the harmony of the community. I laughed it off, tried to play nice, moved the bins, trimmed the lawn, even changed the bulb. None of it mattered. Every week brought a new complaint, a new reason for Karen to flex her imaginary authority. Then came the envelope. It was a Tuesday morning. The sky was bright. My coffee was still warm, and then I saw that HOA logo stamped across the top. I sighed, expecting another absurd fine. But when I opened it, my eyes locked on the words, Notice of Eviction. I blinked. Once? Twice? Surely I misread that. The letter went on about how my property no longer aligned with the aesthetic values of the neighborhood and that I had 30 days to vacate or face legal action and potential foreclosure. Foreclosure. Now I'm not an easy man to rattle, but that word made my stomach drop for a second. HOAs can weaponize fines and bylaw loopholes to make people miserable, but they couldn't evict me. They didn't own the property. I did. That's when I noticed something that made me laugh out loud. Karen had signed the notice herself as HOA president. And it hit me Karen wasn't a homeowner. She was a tenant. And not just any tenant, she was my tenant. See, years before I ever moved here, I'd bought a few investment properties through my side business. One of them, 118 Willow Lane, was currently rented out to a Karen Miller. I pulled up the property files just to be sure, and there it was, lease agreement signed and dated. My name right at the top as owner. I sat there grinning like a man who just found the punchline to the world's dumbest joke. The woman trying to evict me from my home was living in my house. I could have sent her an email attaching the termination notice, but no. That was too easy. Too forgettable. This moment needed to be personal. That afternoon I walked down Willow Lane taking my sweet time. Karen was outside as always lecturing some poor neighbor about their garden fence being half an inch too tall. When she spotted me, she straightened her clipboard like a sheriff reholstering her badge. "I assume you got the notice," she said with that fake sweet smile. "Nothing personal. The HOA just feels you don't fit our community standards." "Oh, I got it," I said calmly. "And I have a response." I handed her a set of papers, my own letter signed, sealed, and very official looking. She took it, scanning it with that smug look until her face drained of color. This is a joke, right? You can't do this." "Oh, but I can," I said. "See, Karen, this house you're standing in right now belongs to me. You sent me an eviction notice for a property I own while living in a property you rent from me." Her mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. You wouldn't dare." "Maybe, maybe not," I said. "Depends how you want to proceed. You either step down from your little HOA throne or step out of my house." I turned and walked away, leaving her trembling in silence. That should have been the end of it, but Karen wasn't the type to admit defeat. The very next morning I got an email titled, "Illegal Eviction Notice, Violation of HOA Bylaws." I actually laughed. She'd filed a complaint against me again, claiming I was engaging in retaliatory eviction and displacing residents unlawfully. I drafted my reply right then and there. "Dear HOA Compliance Team, Karen Miller is not a homeowner. She is my tenant. As the legal owner, I have every right to terminate a lease for cause. My actions are fully compliant with state law. Furthermore, any interference by the HOA in this matter may be considered harassment. Sincerely, your favorite landlord." I hit send and leaned back in my chair feeling smug. But I underestimated her. Later that afternoon there was a knock on my door. 2 police officers stood there, hands on their belts. "Sir, we received a report of an unlawful eviction and harassment," one of them said. I sighed, already guessing who'd called. "Let me guess, Karen." They exchanged a glance. She did. I invited them in, handed over the lease agreement. The eviction notice, the HOA email, everything. They reviewed it all carefully. One of them finally said, "This is completely legal, sir. HOA rules don't override property law." "Yeah," I said dryly. "I'm learning that the hard way." Before they left, they stopped at Karen's door. I couldn't hear the whole exchange, but I caught the last part. "Ma'am, this is a civil issue, not a police matter. Don't call us again unless it's an emergency." That was the first real crack in her armor. But even after that, she didn't stop. Over the next few weeks, she plastered flyers around the neighborhood accusing me of bullying and abusing authority. She tried to rally other board members against me. Every time I walked to my mailbox, I could feel her eyes burning holes in my back. And for a while, it worked. One night, sitting alone in my living room, I started to wonder if I was the problem. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe this whole thing had gotten out of hand. I didn't want to be the kind of guy who ruined someone's life over an HOA feud. I even hovered over the delete button on my court filing. For a few seconds, I almost hit it. Then my phone buzzed. A text from my neighbor, Dan. "You might want to see this man." It was a photo Karen in front of the community bulletin board stapling a new flyer. My face printed right in the center with the words, "Aggressive homeowner, unsafe to approach." That was it. That was my breaking point. I wasn't going to let this woman smear my name while living under my roof. The next morning I met with my attorney. We filed the official eviction notice with the court. Everything was airtight: photos, emails, police reports, the works. Karen had 30 days to vacate, and just as I expected, she didn't pack a single box. The day before the deadline, she was still outside yelling at a kid for riding his scooter too fast. When she saw me drive by, she smirked like she'd already won. But she hadn't seen what was coming. 30 days later, 2 sheriff's deputies pulled up to 118 Willow Lane. I watched from across the street, hands in my pockets, heart pounding in quiet satisfaction. Karen opened the door, arms crossed, voice trembling with fake confidence. "Good morning, ma'am," one officer said. "We're here to execute a court-ordered eviction. You have 15 minutes to vacate the premises." "This is my home," she snapped. The officer didn't flinch. "No, ma'am. This is his home," he said, nodding toward me. "You've been given notice and multiple legal warnings. You're now trespassing on private property." For the first time, Karen didn't have words, just anger, red, shaking, helpless anger. "You don't have to do this," she whispered at me. "We can work something out. I'll drop the complaints." I raised an eyebrow. "Now you want to negotiate? After all the fines, the flyers, the cops?" I shook my head. "No, Karen. You made your bed. Now you get to lie in it." That was when she lost it. She stormed back inside, knocking over chairs and slamming drawers. One of the officers shouted for her to stop. A crash echoed through the house. "Would you like to press charges for property damage?" an officer asked me. I thought about it for a long second. Oh, I wanted to, but I just sighed. No, I just want her gone. 15 minutes later, Karen walked out, face flushed, mascara streaked, dragging a suitcase down the steps. She glared at me one last time, her lips trembling like she wanted to scream, but no sound came out. Then she got into her car and sped away. The deputies changed the locks. I signed the final paperwork. Just like that, it was over. The next morning, I got one last email from the HOA. "Due to a recent vacancy, there is now an open seat on the HOA board. As a valued community member, we'd like to invite you to apply." I laughed so hard I nearly spilled my coffee. Me. Join the HOA. Not a chance. I closed the email, stepped outside, and just breathed. For the first time in months, the neighborhood was quiet. No more fines. No more threats. No more power games. Karen had lost everything: her position, her reputation, her home. And I'd regained something I didn't realize: I'd lost peace. If there's one thing I learned from all of this, it's simple. Never let people who crave control decide how you live your life.